Hello and welcome back to Midwest Charge. After 11,000 miles and 3 months with my 2024 Tesla Model 3 long-range rear-wheel drive, here is what has gone wrong with my car and what has gone well and what you might expect if you decide to pick one up. Alright, we are going to go over 5 issues I've had with the car to start with, and if you see me looking down a little bit, I have some papers, just some notes that I wrote up just to keep track of things, make sure I'm saying things accurately. So first one is going to be with the LED strip. It sounds relatively minor, it's not a huge deal, but up on the front of the dash here, there is a large LED strip that goes all the way across, and there's a section where it, I don't know how to describe it, but I'll show some B-roll here of it, where the dashboard itself seems to kind of cave in a little and block some of the LED piping. It just looks weird. It kind of bothers me. I'm sure it doesn't bother a lot of people. It's not a huge deal, but yeah, it's there. In Tesla's defense, I haven't really brought it up. It's not that big a deal. I just, every couple of days I see it, it bothers me, but it probably just bothers me. Moving up in severity, we get to issue number 2, and that is the headlights fogging. I don't think I have any good video of it, but if I can find some from old videos, I think I've showed it a little bit, and I think I have some pictures. I'll put that here as well. But basically, in cold or humid weather, I have this issue where the headlights seem to fog up quite a bit, enough to almost completely block the turn signals and start to block some of the beam of the headlight. Again, I don't think I have super good footage of this, but I'll put what I have here. I spoke to the service center about this. I had an appointment for it, and the technicians were super cool. My local service center is awesome, but unfortunately Tesla says this is within spec. And for Tesla's definition of within spec, there needs to be fogging across up to 100% of the headlight on a rear-wheel drive model. And so long as water is not pooling at the bottom of the headlight, that is considered fine. I guess they've done some tests, and according to their own testing, the fogging does not affect the beam pattern or the intensity of the LED beam. I don't know about that. I've never done any scientific tests. Maybe they're right, maybe they're not. But either way, it's a little annoying. It kind of looks weird, and having like a little bit of frozen condensation in your headlights in the wintertime is just not cool, especially on a brand new car. Issue number 3, the horn. So, as some of you may or may not know, the refreshed Model 3 included an update to the pedestrian warning system with revamped speakers and a revamped horn. And part of that change was a switch from a physical, horn speaker to combining the functions of the pedestrian speaker with the horn. So now the horn is actually a noise blasted from a physical speaker on the outside of the car, rather than a more traditional horn. I'll put a picture here to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. It's a little bit difficult to explain. But rather than using a dedicated horn device, they use just a regular speaker. Or I guess not regular speaker, but it's combined functions. And it sounds a little weird. That part's fine. Whatever. Every horn sounds different. No big deal. The problem I have is in wet or freezing weather, it just stops working sometimes. Water will make its way into the speaker due to the design and placement of that speaker. And it will either severely muffle the horn or just cut it off entirely. And then you have no horn, or a horn that's so quiet that people around you can't hear it. And that, to me, seems like a big safety issue, especially in rain and snow, which is usually when it happens, and usually when you want to warn other motorists if there's some kind of danger. So that's not super cool. Tesla's official stance on this was that it's normal for the horn to stop functioning when exposed to water or ice, and the resolution is to inform the customer of that. Issue number 4, the car not supercharging sometimes. I have an entire video on my channel about this. I'll link it below, about how the car, sometimes you would roll up to a V3 supercharger, specifically V3s. I never had this issue with version 2 superchargers. I didn't have this issue with CCS stations or J1772 chargers, just V3 superchargers. And not every time, almost every time I would roll up to a version 3 supercharger, I would plug in the car, and there would be this like blink on, blink off, blink on, blink off, and then either it would just do that forever, or it would start to figure itself out and begin charging. This issue was also something I brought up to my local service center here, and they were able to go through, do some searching, and find out that this was a problem. This was a legitimate issue. The long-range rear-wheel drive Model 3 appeared to be the only one affected, and in December, I want to say it was December 26th or 24th, something like that, sometime around Christmas, they pushed an update to the long-range rear-wheel drive Model 3s that included an update to the charging module responsible for handling supercharging that fixed this issue. And as far as I can tell, this is the case. When I plug in now, it's fairly common for me to see on a V3. I'll plug in, the status light will go from light blue, which means, you know, plug me in, to dark blue, which means it's communicating. Well, when it's dark blue pulsing, it means communicating. If it goes dark blue and turns off, that means it has stopped communicating. And now, if I plug into a V3 supercharger, it will turn on, turn off, turn back on, and begin pulsing. And so it seems like there's still a little bit of communication weirdness, but it's not failing to communicate like it was before. All right, number 5, and probably the most severe. The failure of the heat pump in my Model 3. You may remember from my last video driving a fake Tesla across Ohio, in which I took a Chevy Bolt and I gave it open pilot, and we used a supercharger NAX adapter for supercharging, that the heat pump in my car failed. It just stopped working. So I was driving to the Iona station in Springfield, Ohio, and the heat was set to 70 degrees. It was, I want to say, like 15, 16 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and the heat just started to get cooler and cooler. It started to feel like it was maybe 67, 65 degrees, not 70, so I turned up a few degrees, and then I got a warning that said, hey, the heat pump climate system is unavailable due to a system fault. And so I had to have the car towed from Springfield, Ohio to my local service center because it was not safe to drive. It was technically drivable. The car would start. It would go into drive. However, because I had no heat pump, I could not defog or defrost the windshield. And so it would have created a very dangerous situation if I had tried to drive it all the way to my service center. So I had it towed. It stayed there in the parking lot from, was it Saturday? I think it was late Saturday to Monday morning when my appointment was scheduled. And so I swung by Monday morning, and well, late morning, early afternoon, and I spoke to the service advisor there. They were super good about making sure that I was taken care of and getting everything squared away. And so they got the car in, they got it diagnosed, and they got the heat pump, I think it was the compressor and the manifold replaced. I don't know. I'll put the screenshot back on screen here of exactly what the technicians replaced, but they replaced 2 things in the heat pump system, one of them being the compressor, and that ended up fixing the problem, which was awesome. Total, I think it was about 25 hours from when I walked in for my scheduled appointment time to make sure that the car was going to be fixed to when it was done. Amazing. They had so much going on. They had so many vehicles there, but they were able to just take care of everyone quickly and efficiently, and that was awesome. While I was there, I was given a loaner vehicle, a blue with white interior 2019 Model 3. That was super cool. So I did have a vehicle, so I could still go to work and, you know, do all of my errands that I needed to do. Service center experience. I've already alluded to it and talked quite a bit about this, but my local service center is super awesome. It's the Dayton, Ohio service center, and the people there are really cool, very communicative, and they really try to get things done with a high degree of quality and speed, and it's pretty great. On my first service visit, I had them look at the charging problem, the horn, and the lights. And while the service itself was stellar, the decisions by Tesla, the corporation, not the service center down there, but the decisions by Tesla Why is it that this, new vehicle has these issues with the horn and with the lights, and somehow it's just okay and I'm supposed to just deal with it? That just seems frustrating. I'd say overall, obviously service at your local service center is going to depend on where you are and how they're staffed, but overall, I've had no complaints with this one or the others that I visited. They've usually been very knowledgeable, very passionate people. And while I don't really like some of the practices that Tesla has from like a manufacturing and decision standpoint, the people that work there are by and large awesome to talk to and work with. With all those negatives out of the way, let's get to some of the positives. The rear-wheel drive long-range Model 3 drives amazingly. The handling is phenomenal, it's incredibly comfortable, and I've had just as much fun driving this car as the all-wheel drive Model Y that I drove before it. The 2024 refresh of the Model 3 came with many new features like turn signal buttons, ventilated seats in addition to heated seats, a larger display, improved suspension, LED lighting around the interior, and many other things that are noticeable improvements. Yeah, we'll say that. Yeah, that are noticeable improvements over the Tesla Model Y that I drove before. In terms of storage space, the Model 3 has more than enough, at least for my life. It has a very large and spacious trunk. It has a front trunk with even more room for extras. We recently took the car on a road trip with 4 people, I want to say, about 2,000 miles round trip, and we didn't have any issues with not being able to fit luggage or anything like that. I take the car frequently on long road trips, and again, just no issues with storage. Yes, it is less than the Model Y. I want to say the Model Y has 2.5 or 3 times the trunk space, and it does have a lot of room. This is a more traditional sedan with a regular opening trunk and a little extra space up front. Let's talk about reliability. Compared to my old Model Y, this car, while I like it personally more, it's more fun to drive, it's more engaging, it has FSD, and a variety of improvements, including to the range and the comfort of the car. The reliability itself has been significantly worse. I really didn't have any issues with my Model Y. I didn't have any headlight condensation problems. The horn worked all the time. The heat pump never failed. I did have a 2023, so it did have a heat pump as well. Really, I think the worst issue I had was I had some wind noise coming from the front driver window in my Model Y, but they were able to readjust the position of the frameless window, and that just never came back. So, yeah, I mean, I really like the car, but objectively, it is a less reliable vehicle than other EVs that I've owned. Again, overall, I really love this vehicle. I do drive a lot, way more than the average person, and I put a lot of hard miles on my vehicles, and this one has held up very well, even though it hasn't held up as well as my other EVs. Overall, I would say it's a great vehicle. I would still recommend it, but just like any car, there are going to be problems with it, and sometimes if you get an earlier production car like this one, then you'll have problems. The decision to exclude the better sealed headlights from the long-range rear-wheel drive model and to ignore the horn functionality or lack thereof in bad conditions is a real letdown. And if anyone else is experiencing that you know of, or if you have experienced this issue with the horn, please, if you're in the United States, write a report to the NHTSA and maybe they'll investigate it. Would you consider buying a Tesla Model 3 after hearing about my experience? What experiences have you had? If you own an older one or a new one, drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. Thanks for watching this video, and again, I apologize for kind of looking down a lot in this video. I usually don't do scripted stuff. I typically just think about what I'm going to say and then speak it, but I wanted to make sure I got a lot of the things correct and that I had things in the right order for this video, so that's why I kind of did that. But I hope you understand, and I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this video. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.